Hi, my name is O for YouTube videos. I am a feminist and a lesbian. I make conversational commentary videos about both of those things usually, but I want to try something seasonal. So today, I want to talk about a very Jonas Christmas. My background on this one, I was once a Jonas Brothers fan. There is no universal girlhood experience or universal lesbian experience, but my experience of lesbian girlhood for a short period hinged very much around needing to assign myself a boy band and also a member in a boy band. This was an important part of socializing with other girls my age. I don't know if they all had to put as much effort into their choices as I did, or if it comes naturally to some of us. The Jonas Brothers were my self assigned boy band, and I will admit right off the bat here, I don't have the lingering positive feelings toward this band that the fans of theirs who are attending their seemingly unending recent concert tours have towards their old work. You do not need my permission to like the Jonas Brothers. I'm very happy for you if those concerts are doing it for you and you're having fun with them. But for me, while the Jonas Brothers were my self assigned boy band, they were also the first band that I looked back at and realized, oh, I think I like music marketed toward adults now. Once I started getting into other artists, and they were still pretty Disney Channel adjacent. But it does feel like a useful background color here to know that I was, at one point, a Jonas Brothers fan. And I have been pretty interested by those recent tours, just not in a musical appreciation way. Like, I know the Jonas Brothers recently put out a new album, but I feel most everything I've seen about their tours has been them hitting a nostalgia angle recently, like touring all of their albums in one night, or going on an anniversary tour for another album, or hosting a fan convention that I didn't know anything about until I watched a really great Swell Entertainment video where she went. Something I've said before in private conversations about the Jonas Brothers is that I feel in big 2025, they are aware that their chance of growing the amount of active fans they have is not in outreach to new people who somehow haven't heard of them and need to be won over, but in reactivating their existing fans, the people who will come out for one of those 5 albums in one night type of concerts because it's the music that they've loved since they were a child or teenager, or loved when they were a child or teenager and maybe sort of forgot about a little bit in the interim but want to go to a concert for now. And I've been very aware of that sort of reactivation of old fans that seems to be going on. I've been very little more than just vaguely aware, though, as somebody who's been firmly outside of any sort of Jonas Brothers fandom since I was like, I don't know, 13 or so. But it feels like what they've been doing lately is very nostalgia oriented. I'm sure somebody who likes the Jonas Brothers more than I do might correct me about this, but that's my read on the current state of the Jonas Brothers. And that's why I was only slightly surprised to see that they were putting out a Christmas movie through Disney Plus this year. Because if they're already going for the nostalgia factor, and the time in their career that people are so nostalgic for is when they were a Disney boy band, why would they not go right back into the open arms of the mouse? In the days between me filming the rest of this and me editing this now, I have been served quite a bit of Jonas Brothers content on YouTube, one of those videos being the teaser trailer for the third Camp Rock movie, which all three of the brothers are set to be in as well as executive produce. This, I feel, furthers not just my nostalgia branding theory, but also makes me suspect Disney Plus may have given them some sort of multi-picture deal. It'll be interesting to see if it's just for these 2 movies, or if they were already contracted for more than that, or maybe more will come out depending on how well these 2 movies do. I don't know. I don't know any more than you do at this point. I just thought it was an interesting addition. I wasn't sure if I was going to make a video about this movie or not because I feared that there would not be enough to say. This is a Christmas movie about a boy band of brothers trying to make it home to their families for the holidays and hijinks ensuing. I worried that I would spend an hour and 17 minutes of my wild and precious life watching this movie and come back with nothing to say. But that's not the case. I do have some things to say. Mostly that this movie is weird. Don't get me wrong, it's also just kind of stupid and not very good, but it's also weird. It's a weird movie when you approach it with the kind of lens that I approach things I'm considering making videos about with. It's weird when you're somebody who already spends quite a bit of time thinking about the ways famous people position themselves in public discourse and the reputations that famous men enjoy cultivating for themselves, how they can essentially pay for the way they'd like to be thought of. The movie is weird. The Jonas Brothers are playing themselves, which I assume is already pretty obvious, right? The movie is called A Very Jonas Christmas. It's a movie about them trying to get home from their final tour stop in London for the holidays. The versions of themselves that they're playing in this movie already felt familiar to me. And I realized they already felt familiar because the Jonas Brothers have already played themselves. They played characters with their own first names, but the last name Lucas in their Disney Jonas TV show. And then there was also Camp Rock, where Kevin and Nick seemed to be playing lightly fictionalized versions of themselves, where they didn't have very much screen time but had to show up to remind you that the Jonas Brothers are brothers, and their marketing very much hinged around that, and not on any of them as true individuals, even though Joe was getting his own movie. I realized I was already familiar with the fictionalizations of these guys from those projects, but I'm also familiar with just the level of fictionalization that already happens with any celebrity in the public eye. These carefully cultivated personas and personalities, both those that have been crafted by the famous person themselves and their PR team, and the ones that have been crafted by the media reporting on them and by the fans engaging with both the celebrity and the media. But for somebody as familiar with the Jonas Brothers as I still am, for whatever reason, I sure wish that I could devote this space in my brain to geometry or something instead. These characterizations of these guys in the movie were already pretty familiar to me. Nick is the uptight planner brother. He takes on too much responsibility for things and then resents his brothers for not appreciating him enough for doing things they didn't ask him to do or just assumed he was fine with doing. Nick Jonas is high strung. Nick Jonas has a beautiful wife. Those are things I already feel like I know about him in the real world. And then there's Kevin, and Kevin is the wife guy. That's something I feel like has been part of his branding for about as long as he's had a wife. Kevin was the one who had the Married to Jonas reality show about his marriage, and he's been with his wife Danielle for a long time. She's in this movie also. He's frequently seen on the phone calling and talking to her. And as I remember him being in Camp Rock and the TV show, he's still the goofy, silly one. In this movie, he's portrayed a little bit less as purely stupid comedic relief than I remember him being in Camp Rock. But that's also still kind of there. It's still present. And this all feels really familiar, even when it's blended together with his real world wife guy persona. So that's two wife guys in a row. But then that brings us to Joe. And the thing about Joe Jonas is that he's divorced. Joe is the divorced Jonas brother. You might remember this as much as I do, when he split with Sophie Turner and there were suddenly massive amounts of headlines really critical of her parenting, that they thought she was irresponsible, that she partied too much. Joe Jonas is the divorced Jonas brother. He went through a very high profile divorce. And while I already knew that about him, I was kind of shocked at how obvious that is in his characterization in this movie. At first, it's just kind of little things, like the other guys are on the phone with their wives about not being able to get home for Christmas, and Joe calls his mom. And the other guys really need to get home to their wives and kids, and Joe, in theory, does, but he's got much less of this drive. He's much more interested in having a good time in London. His kids are at home, though. They're present at the very end of the movie when all the little Jonasi are around and mostly obscured in the very final scenes. But there is so much less dialogue around Joe's children than around Kevin and Nick's that you would almost be forgiven for not knowing they existed at all. I only knew they existed because of his real world custody battle about them. Hi, editing Ophi again. I just kept thinking about the whole custody thing the longer I sat on this video and decided I needed to come back and give you more details about what I mean when I reference this. What I'm upset about is not just what Sophie Turner went through in the press, which she has described as being hell and as being something she wasn't sure she could make it through, but also things Joe Jonas himself allegedly put her through, and which make her pointed absence, as well as the movie's cameo inclusion of their shared children at the end, feel really, really strange and off-putting to me. In 2023, during the height of the coverage around their divorce, TMZ published a story about Sophie Turner filing court documents where she was requesting an order from the judge for Joe to return the children's passports, which she said he was withholding from her. They seem to have come to an amicable co-parenting situation in the years since then, but I don't forget, I am not very trusting of the way this man uses his children, whether in the real world or narratively in this movie. Thank you so much to Ava over on my Patreon for tipping me off about this as a fellow Jonas Brothers historian, but there's actually reason to doubt that the semi-obscure Jonas children in the final scenes of the movie even include Sophie Turner and Joe Jonas's children. There's some speculation based on paparazzi photos of the children not quite lining up with what we see in the film, but also, most tellingly, they are not featured in the end credits of the movie the way Kevin's children are, the way Nick's child is, and also the way Will Ferrell's children are. There is no official word on this. I was able to find a Reddit comment claiming to know someone who knows someone who said that they involved Joe's children in the movie in a way that wasn't for the public to see, but I don't want to take that too seriously because it could definitely be source I made it up. But that could also be the source for the listicle articles I've found claiming that they are his children and not mentioning the lack of names in the credits. And People magazine reported about all of the Jonas children and did not claim that Joe's children were in the movie the way they claimed for the other two. Sound off in the comments. Do you think those are really his kids? Do you think his children are in the Jonas Christmas movie? Let me know. Joe is also obviously the only one who's given a love interest plot in this movie because, again, the other guys are already settled married wife guys who are trying to get back to their wives and kids. Joe's love interest in this movie has also recently been through a breakup, and when they talk about this, he has a line about having been through bad breakups himself. Which, again, knowing how Sophie Turner was treated in the press during their divorce, that's so weird. That's really strange. I'm not saying that the Jonas Brothers themselves wrote this movie, because they didn't, but that doesn't mean that it's not still very intentionally a PR vehicle for the narratives that they would like to sell around themselves, right? Especially when so many of it already feels in line with the established motifs for these guys throughout their careers. And in line with these established motifs, each of the brothers goes through their own little arc. Nick needs to learn how to be a little bit less uptight and learn how to make decisions collaboratively with his brothers. Joe needs to fall in love and get a girlfriend. Kevin Jonas, who has less subscribers on YouTube than I do, needs to be brave enough to ask his brothers if he's allowed to sing lead on a song, which he does during the very last song of the movie. And when he does, everybody watches him all amazed and surprised and impressed, which made me laugh a lot. It was really silly, but it felt like it was being played really straight and like it was supposed to be heartwarming. And I felt like the movie, for what it was, had a weird amount of that. Considering what this movie was and what happens in it, it was kind of hard for me to get my hands around. Because at times it felt like the movie understood that it was a ridiculous, intentionally silly movie, but at other times it truly felt like they thought they were doing something. The brief for Disney Plus was probably that it was supposed to be like a family comedy with heart or whatever, but the heart of it all was just weird and really parasocial. I want to correct myself on 2 points here. One, I said I have more subscribers than Kevin Jonas does on YouTube, and that was true at the time of recording. He had about 12,000. Now that I'm recording again, he has just slightly more subscribers than me, like a negligible amount more subscribers than me. I am at 20.6 and he is at 20.7. So, if you would like for me to have more subscribers on YouTube than a Jonas brother, please consider subscribing to my channel. Second of all, I think the brief for Disney Plus was not just holiday comedy with a lot of heart. I think the brief included what the Jonas Brothers were doing in the real world that they wanted marketed. That little romance plotline for Joe Jonas, it wasn't just because he was the only brother they could slot into that. It was because he also put out an album this year about learning to fall in love again. What excellent tie-in. How extremely convenient. And that bit about Kevin being so nervous to talk about wanting to sing lead in a song? Yeah, he's also singing lead in a song in the real world, a different one than the one that he sings in the movie. Like my Patreon friend Ava pointed out, this is a piece of just stellar PR, not only for the Jonas Brothers as that band of three they are always marketed as, but for what each of them individually are doing in the real world. It's fascinating. So, a brief overview of the plot of this movie. The Jonas Brothers are finishing their tour and they have their final stop in London, and then they need to get back to New York, where they will all go their separate ways and spend Christmas with their individual families. The entire movie begins with Will Ferrell. And have we not, as a society, grown past the need for this? Why is Will Ferrell in everything? Why was he in Barbie? Why is he here? I didn't ask for this. I would love to know who, other than Will Ferrell's agent, is chomping at the bit for this guy to be in everything. Maybe I just don't get it. Their first song is a Christmas song called You Make Every Day Feel Like It's Christmas, and you get what that's about just from its title. It's probably the least bad song in the movie, which is to say it sounds like a Christmas song, so still not great. Then the Jonas Brothers finish their concert. We blow through half of all of the Randall Park screen time that we will get in this movie way too quickly for my liking, as he disappears and leaves them to their own devices to get home because he's going to go renew his vows with his wife. And then Joe, remember I said he's a lot less driven by wanting to get home to his children? Joe has a song, once Randall Park is gone and they're left alone, about how they should go and have the best night of their lives before they fly home for Christmas. And like, this song wants to be about getting laid, but it can't be because this is on Disney Plus, and also because the brothers he's singing to are married and branding themselves as wife guys. So instead, this is a song about how this night could be fire and Joe Jonas is the fun supplier. And I probably should have guessed this because, like, they're a band. This is when I realized that what I was watching was not just a Christmas movie with the Jonas Brothers in it, like I assumed for some reason, even though they're literally a band, and this makes much more sense. It is a Christmas movie musical, which, in a way, does make me like the movie a little bit more. Like, they at least tried to go for it a little bit. It would have been more boring if not for the songs. Can I say the songs made the movie better? Almost universally no, but it being a musical did. I can't really explain that. These songs are not good, in as many words. They do sound kind of vaguely like Jonas Brothers songs, especially in production, but the lyrics to these songs in this movie are just really, really bad. I know the catchy accusation to make these days when you don't like a song is to say that it was written by ChatGPT, but I don't even think that's the case here. I'm not making accusations of AI plagiarism, I'm making accusations of free association exercises. Not only do the songs in this movie scan as a first draft, they scan as a first draft that was written in as little time as possible. And according to the Genius lyrics, these songs were not written by the Jonas Brothers. They were written by a handful of names that I, to be so honest with you, do not really recognize, and also Justin Tranter. Justin Tranter, who did Good Luck Babe and My Kink is Karma. Justin Tranter did these. Justin Tranter did some of my favorite Chapel Roan songs, and also some of the worst songs I have ever heard in a movie musical. Maybe his thing is like not lyrics. Maybe he was just on the production and that's why they sound convincingly like Jonas Brothers songs. Like it is bending my brain to think that one of the guys credited with Chapel Roan on Good Luck Babe did this to me and to everyone. That's wild. We all truly contain multitudes. So after Joe's song about having the best night of your life before you fly home for Christmas, he goes and sits at a bar and he talks to Jesse Tyler Ferguson, who is Santa. And he laments that he feels like since his brothers don't want to party with him and also they've been fighting, he's just worried that they've lost their brotherly magic. And then Santa puts a spell on them so that they can't return home to their families unless they all decide to spend Christmas together. The Jonas Brothers, however, do not know that they have a spell on them, and hijinks ensue. I'm skipping over many of the rest of the songs and much of the plot of this movie because it's mostly what I've already said. But I will say that there are two plane explosions in this movie. And at some point between the two of them, there was the only song I thought was funny. A song where Nick was duetting with the co-star from a very short-lived fictitious stage musical version of Home Alone. I already thought the musical version of Home Alone starring Nick Jonas as the dad was a pretty funny concept, but then there was an actual song, and it did actually make me laugh. I'll be fair. That was a good joke. That was a great joke. And again, it was an example of the movie knowing that it was silly and ridiculous. And it is a silly, ridiculous movie. Jesse Tyler Ferguson is Santa. But then the movie also wanted to have not just some level of emotional weight, but a very specific and nostalgic sort of emotional weight. The boys end up in the back of Santa Tyler Ferguson's Christmas tree truck, and they sing a song about memories and nostalgia and being younger and things being less complicated. And the movie, which at this point has often just felt like a series of loosely interconnected music videos, plays real life childhood videos of the Jonas Brothers over this song. And it's so parasocial. And I get that that's part of the marketing for boy bands at all. I get that that's part and parcel with me even understanding these shorthands for these guys as fictional characters and being familiar with which roles I already knew they would slot into. But this childhood footage is just it feels so weirdly manipulative in a way. It feels like I'm not only being asked to feel this very particular and parasocial fondness for these adult men and their childhood selves, but also that they're aware as they're selling that to me that it's what's needed for the success of their brand and the public images they have. I'm to look at this scene and feel as though I watched the Jonas Brothers grow up, or probably more accurate for who the demographic for this very millennial Christmas movie is, as though I have grown up with them. And maybe it's just that I outgrew the Jonas Brothers so long ago, or maybe it is just that I am a lesbian and it makes whatever they're hoping to imprint on me nearly impossible for them to achieve, but it didn't work for me. I didn't find it to be a horribly offensive movie. I just think it's interesting sometimes to consume things that aren't quite made for me, but think that they are. Because other than the part where I'm a lesbian, I think me as a 27-year-old, I'm pretty close to the audience that they were looking for this movie. They also did put the guy from Riverdale, who they all make a point of acting as though is the hottest person they've ever seen in the world, and I didn't even recognize that it was the guy from Riverdale, and I didn't know that people thought about the guy from Riverdale like that. Is that a joke? I never know when people are joking about men being attractive in movies. I mean, he's fine, but they were acting like he was like something really special. I think he just has abs. This movie does not pass the Bechdel test. It does not pass the does it piss me off and make me think about Sophie Turner and wish I was watching a movie with her in it instead test. But it does, strictly by way of having the Jonas Brothers all get inexplicably and immediately very thirsty for KJ Appa, have some gay subtext. And isn't that what Christmas is truly all about? I was recently trying to explain the difference between the Jonas TV show and the Jonas LA season that they did when they tried to like age it up a little bit to my friend Little Shop of Alley, and I realized that might be a fun video. If you're interested in that, maybe let me know in the comments below. Should I do more Jonas Brothers content? If you're interested in getting more videos like this from me, consider subscribing to my Patreon. Not only did my Patreon friends get this video early, but they're also going to be getting first dibs at a series I'll be working on in the new year, where I see how many Disney Channel original movies I remember from my childhood actually pass the Bechdel test, actually have gay subtext, or ideally, both. Thank you so much to my Patreon subscribers, a few of whose names you can see on the screen right now, and to my YouTube channel members. Thanks to everybody who has supported me via one-off donations on my Ko-fi. Super thanks, super chats. It's such a huge help. Thank you to everybody who hangs out, even when I'm just talking about silly Jonas Brothers holiday movies. I'm planning on being back a lot this month. I have a lot of things I'd like to talk about before the year is up. I have a couple more seasonal videos I want to do. Thank you for being here. Hope to see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.